Hello there, this is a quick video update on what's been happening with the disappeared people in my family and my recent endeavours to try and find out where they are and what's happened to them. I went on a road trip, that's to Bath. This is just after my sister's birthday, just after the solstice on the 22nd. Um, Knocked on my father's front door, only to be turned away. Had the door slammed in my face while I'm holding a bunch of flowers in my hand for my mother. Literally didn't get a chance to give them to her before he slammed the door in my face, and so I had to knock again. Um, but I did at least, sort of ask my dad, like, does he know anything about these four missing family members? Specifically, my sister, Maya Dunkley, not been seen since 2010. Both her children, Zoe and Ella, not been seen since 2010. And my son, Benjamin Fairbairn, who has not been seen since 2014. No sight nor sound of any of them. So my father said, I don't know. I don't know. Nothing to do with me. Just slammed the door in my face. So, I mean, very clearly it is something to do with him. I mean, we know that. We know he's been threatening people. We know he's been managing, a massive terrorist organization. So he was lying about that. And he also said, actually, something about, um, you ruined my life. You ruined my life. I'm not going to let you ruin my day. Right. I mean, ruin your life. What have I done to ruin his life? The only thing I've done is collected evidence of, the most cowardly, brutal torture, hostage taking, suicide incitement, kidnapping, murder attempts, serial murder, and mutilating patients beyond recognition. That's all I've collected evidence on, and it's all sound, it's all 100% correct, and that he calls ruining his life, which we can only translate as meaning that he was planning to escalate a campaign of serial murder in 2022, and he didn't, not just serial murder, but brutal assaults and patient bashing and terrorism, threats, kidnapping, while they sit there mutilating innocent people beyond recognition, in the most sinister, evil manner imaginable. So, yeah. I didn't have any choice at that point but to call the police, like you do. I mean, quite literally, if I haven't seen four family members for, 10 years, then I need to call the police to try and establish, what the hell is going on here. And lo and behold, about 3, 4 hours later, they turned up. Yeah, police did eventually turn up, and it was a great opportunity, in fact, for me to share this evidence that I've worked really, really hard to collect. And I think, it's not just blatantly sinister and evil that my dad should, sit there complaining about me collecting evidence of serial murder, which obviously betrays his involvement immediately. Why would he be complaining about that? I mean, if he's not, actually organising these murders himself. I mean, it just makes it so blatantly obvious who's doing it. It's like beyond stupid, but there we have it. The police did turn, and it was a good opportunity for me at least to explain what I've been through briefly, what I've endured in the form of all this abuse and torture, all the patient bashing and murder attempts. And of course, this nice lady officer went to knock on the front door, came back a few minutes later saying that, very sadly, she can't really help, and asked me to leave. Doesn't want me sitting in the driveway, wants me to leave now. I'm like, what would there's four missing family members, haven't been seen for over 10 years, and I've got to leave. I mean, what does that tell you about the police being paid and obviously bribed, in order to, help and support all this crime, just to support brutal torture, support, routine patient beating, to support brutal murder attempts that obviously end in regular fatalities, to support serial first degree murder on, vulnerable patients, and of course then, all the gain of function research, which is all this basically amounts to, just classic gain of function research, which is all, has the specific intention of mutilating patients beyond recognition, which is quite honestly, the most cowardly, the most evil, disgusting, despicable crimes you'll ever hear about in your lifetime. Singling out, patients, with terminal illness and beating them to death simply because they've discovered cures and they wish to help another patient, because that's all it amounts to. People who have struggled with terminal illnesses all their life become experts on it. I mean, they have to be in order to turn the symptoms and reverse the symptoms. They either die from it, just stay in awful misery, or learn something. And if they learn something, they have the opportunity to pass that on to another patient. Much like me, if I'd endured 25 years of horrible cancer problem, and I learned tons of valuable stuff, along the way. Obviously, somebody who's just coming down with the first symptoms of cancer would really like to see that, because that could help them avoid 25 years of the most abject misery you can imagine. But that's where they make their money, from the abject misery, and if you know how to stop that misery, all of a sudden you become an immediate target for a murder attempt. These people will not hesitate to kill you. In the old days, they used to crucify them. They used to just drag you out, humiliate you, make you wear a crown of thorns, drag you down the street, and nail you to a piece of wood. These days, they just find a way to push you away into your house and just beat you to death. I mean, as long as you're buried, they don't care how it's done. And yeah, what we did manage to establish is that, yes, of course, the police are being sadly paid in order to look the other way, having so little authority, obviously, to do something about such obvious problems. But what we have clearly established is that this is a very serious problem in Bath. Probably, citing now Bath and Bournemouth as a kind of medical mafia capital of Britain. We don't know how many people are being tortured, mutilated beyond recognition, say per month, or even per week in this country, or even the entire United Kingdom. We don't know how many, incidents of patient beating are happening per day. We don't know how many of those result in a fatality, say per week. I mean, what happens if if we've got actually, a patient beaten to death, say once a fortnight, that's 25 a year, when they make up some silly excuse, they fell down the stairs because they don't want you to hear the truth in the newspaper. This all sort of paints a picture of this growing, escalating crime and corruption that is just literally intolerable and unacceptable just on any level. And it's worth mentioning, that I have shared all this evidence I collected and showed to the police in Bath, Avon and Somerset Police. I've shared it with law enforcement in America, with senators, at least 3 senators in America. I've shared it with Sky News Australia. I've shared it with every single Met Police inbox in the UK. I have shared it with a number of people. This is just contacts I've got. This is in Singapore, China, Malaysia, just random people I was speaking to along the way over the last couple of years. I've shared and everybody has come back to tell me that, yes, Crispin, you're right. All the evidence is 100% correct. You've done a good job in actually assembling it. And it's very clearly the most evil, spineless crimes being committed in the world today. I mean, picking up on patients who have, a terminal illness and beating them to death when the person doing the violence, is twice the size of the patient, never had a terminal illness, is by dictionary definition the most spineless violence happening in Britain today. Not just Britain, the entire world. This goes on, this has been going on for, obviously many thousands of years the world over, and is by definition the most spineless, cowardly, gutless form of abuse and terrorism and brutal murders being committed in the world, full stop, period. So yeah, given that, I mean, and the fact that the police are unable to do, anything about it, again, sends out a very, very clear message, which is, and what else are we seeing in the midst of all this at the moment? All this oligarchy. What do they call it? The oligarchy. Sorry. Oligarchy or I think it's oligarchy, who refers to the select elite who use their money to buy power, buy out institutions, and then, literally do what the fuck they like. Whether it just be brutal murders or the most cowardly violence, it doesn't matter. I mean, isn't it? It's just rampant, relentless, ruthless. And they sit there laughing their tits off because they can afford to pay the police to look the other way. You know what I mean? And so that only, really should, be making you wonder, what the hell really, is the full extent of this problem? You know what I mean? I mean, really. Because, yeah, I think this is certainly a question that needs to be urgently answered at the moment, especially in light of the fact that this is classic gain of function research. That obviously patient beating and beating patients to death is the most classic form of making terminal illness more deadly, more terrifying, more virulent, more likely to cause suffering in a patient, and therefore, enable corrupt institutions to capitalize upon that misery. Um, it's all classic gain of function research. And as I say, for Boris Johnson just to be sitting there having these ridiculous parties, with all this sort of rampant serial murder and this satanic cult of death, that very clearly my father is residing over, which obviously manages all this, evil, despicable violence upon patients, is all part and parcel of it, and this legendary satanic death cult, I think, is something that many of us suspected, was happening, but didn't really have any clear evidence of until recently. And I said that clear evidence has come now in the form of this virus. Now we see that all of a sudden, all this patient beating, cancer charity fraud has exploded in the form of this virus, and obviously provided all the finance and inspiration on the back of all this exploiting patients. Then we only have to wonder what on earth Boris Johnson is doing there, because I think that he has already been told about this. I think I have good reason to believe that British politicians up there in Westminster have been told about my case. They have been told about all the things happening, all the crimes I've outlined, and I think they've just decided, they've had a quick look to see, how much are the police being paid to cover up all this? Oh, it seems like, is it 50 million? I see, yeah. Oh, well, okay, and they just sort, Boris Johnson just said that, oh, right, okay, I won't interfere, It's like, hang on a minute. I mean, people are already starting to laugh at this guy, for being just a fraud. This might be a good opportunity for him to stand up and actually do something constructive and show the country that, he does actually have our best interests at stake, not just his own and all this stupid, select elite. Thank you for watching, and I shall be going to Guildford soon. That's the last thing I'd just like to point out. I'm going to Guildford soon to see my sister. And I can only expect to be turned away at the front door, so I've got to drive for an hour and 45 minutes to Guildford just to be turned away at the front door. I was like, don't expect you've collected evidence of the paedophile ring. Oh, that's the other thing, isn't it? Yes, these damn bastards have been running a paedophile ring. This is another thing that's happening in the equation here. My sister appears to be held hostage by paedophiles. Not just is obviously part of this satanic death cult who manage the cancer charity fraud and everything else. And they seem to have a very tight grip on her and manipulating her, in which case I suppose they told her, if your brother comes, you just slam the door in his face, even though he's done nothing to you, done nothing wrong, and you've got no reason not really to talk to him other than the fact he collects evidence. I mean, it beggars belief. So anyway, thank you for watching, and I look forward to giving you another update in the near future.